Hello and welcome to this short video on how to apply to Northeast Dairy Business Innovation Center grants. Before we get into application tips, here's a quick overview of the NEDBIC. We are one of 4 dairy business innovation initiatives in the country. The other centers are in Wisconsin, Tennessee, and California. The DBIs were created and funded through the 2018 Farm Bill. Our priorities are to invest in dairy farms and processors in order to promote the development, production, marketing, and distribution of dairy products. NEDBIC serves dairy farmers and processors in 11 Northeast states. We fund cow, goat, and sheep dairy projects. We're based at the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Food, and Markets, and some of our key partners include state departments of agriculture, extension offices, and business assistance organizations. We offer a wide range of grants. This includes funding food safety improvements, marketing and branding services, farm and processor modernization, and more. For the most up-to-date funding calendar, please visit our website at nedairyinnovation.com/grants. So what can grants pay for? While each grant program has specific funding priorities and eligible costs, generally our grant funds can pay for training, consulting, project-related travel, supplies, and specialized equipment, by which we mean dairy-specific and not general-purpose equipment. For example, bulk tanks and milk silos, milk handling equipment, and dairy processing equipment. Grant funds can also be used for the installation of specialized equipment. There are some things that grant funds cannot pay for. This includes construction, including concrete, general use equipment like tractors, vehicles, or trailers, or projects that support raw milk for human consumption. NEDBIC cannot pay for any costs incurred outside the grant period, meaning if you purchase something before you apply and receive a grant, we cannot reimburse you for that cost. One important thing to note is that these ineligible costs can be used as match. Let's look at what that means on the next slide. NEDBIC grants require a 25% match, meaning you must contribute 25% of the total grant award to your project. For example, if you receive a $100,000 grant, you must provide an additional $25,000 to the project in matching funds. Match can be in dollars, in-kind contribution, or a combination of the two. If your project includes construction, those construction costs can count toward your match. If you and/or your employees are working on the project, you can count personnel costs toward your match. Match contributions do not have to be exactly 25% for each expense category, but they must total at least 25% of the total grant ask. For example, a grant request of $80,000 in equipment, $2,050 in training, and $12,950 in supplies, and $5,000 in other can have a cash match of $12,000 in equipment, $1,500 in personnel, $3,000 in contractual or consultant services, $5,950 in supplies, $1,500 in other, and an in-kind match of $1,050 in other. The other category includes any expenses not covered in any of the previous budget categories. For example, this could be renting or shipping expenses. Even though most of the grant funds are for equipment, the applicant needs additional resources like personnel, training, consulting, and supplies to successfully complete the project. If you have questions about matching funds or the grant budget, please reach out to the grant manager of the program you're applying to. So, how can you determine if the project you have in mind aligns with the grant? The first thing to do is to read through the Request for Applications, or RFA. The RFA is a guide to the application and includes the funding priorities, examples of eligible projects, application requirements, and the full application questions. Here's a high-level view of how to apply to NEDBIC grants. First, read the full RFA. If you have any questions, contact the grant manager whose contact information is listed in the RFA and on the grant webpage. Next, prepare your project. This includes registering in WebGrants, our grants management system, getting your quotes and preparing a budget, developing your project plan, and asking for letters of support from partners and stakeholders. Some of our grant programs require applicants to work with technical assistance providers, while other programs don't. Again, check with the RFA for this detail and reach out with any questions. Finally, fill out your application in WebGrants. We recommend drafting your responses in a separate document, then copy and pasting them into WebGrants. All of our grants are open for at least 6 weeks, and we encourage you to submit ahead of the deadline to avoid any issues when submitting your application. One of the best ways to strengthen your application is to make it clear. Outline the activities in your work plan and tell us what you need in order to complete the project. When writing your goals, tell us why and how this project will impact your business. When possible, provide specific metrics such as the amount of energy saved, the amount of time saved, and/or projected sales increase. Ensure your expenses are eligible and align with the project intent. Grant frequently asked questions. We have a web page with FAQs that you can find at nedairyinnovation.com/resources/FAQ. 3 frequently asked questions to highlight are, do you need a grant writer? In this case, the answer is no. Many successful applications are completed by farmers or processors. However, you can work with a grant writer if you would like to. Can you apply if you have a current or past NEDBIC grant? Yes. You just want to make sure that your grant projects aren't duplicative, and be sure to explain how the project builds on or relates to your past work. And can other grants or loans be part of your match? The answer here is also yes, if the grant funds are non-federal and not restricted from being matched. Please keep in mind that NEDBIC grants cannot be matched for other grants, and again, funds cannot be duplicative. One thing to remember is that your application doesn't need to be fancy. Instead, just follow these steps. Read the full RFA, which is the application guide. Align your project with funding goals of the grant. Identify the problems this grant will help you solve, and clearly write out your plan. As you go through the grant application, make sure you answer all parts of each question. Keep in mind that people who are unfamiliar with your business will be reading the application. So you want to write your answers in a way that clearly describes your business and details your proposed project so that it's understandable to someone who's learning about your farm or business for the first time. And be sure to include all required documentation. The RFA lists what you'll need to submit. Applications are typically due at 2 p.m. Eastern on the due date. We cannot accept late applications. We always recommend submitting your application early to avoid any unforeseen tech issues. If you have any questions, please reach out to the Grant Program Manager, whose contact is listed both on the RFA and on the grant webpage. You can find our contact information at nedairyinnovation.com/contact. The best way to stay up to date with NEDBIC grants is by signing up for our email newsletter, which goes out once a month. Thanks so much for watching this presentation, and be sure to reach out if you have any questions.